I am here with Dr. Steve Cox. He is one of the instructors in our online learning community. Hi, Dr. Steve.
Hi, Jordan. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
So, we're just here answering some questions for potential parents or even existing parents so that they can get a little bit of an idea of how your courses go, a little bit of an introduction to you. So, can we start by just giving us a little bit of a background on your teaching and your expertise?
Okay, well, I have a PhD in history, in American history, but I've taught European and Western civilization and world history. And my specialty is 19th and 20th century America, but I teach everything in American history. So I I've also have a background. I have an education degree, and um, I served as one of the judges at History Day. History Day is like a science fair, only it's for history. And junior high school kids usually are the ones that participate in this. And I was fortunate enough to be involved with that. I worked at the New Hampshire Historical Society for some time. And eventually I ended up at Indiana Historical Society, where I was the vice president of education and public programs.
So tell us a little bit about the courses that you're teaching for Royal Fireworks in the coming semester.
In the coming semester, I'm teaching the second half of the what we call the introductory course to American history. That is from basically after the Civil War to the present. The present being defined as whenever I can, wherever I stop. My goal is to get to early 21st century, focusing on the political development and the social and economic realms as well. So it's just a general overview of the period. My other courses, the history of the Civil War. This will be the third time I've taught that. That covers the Civil War only. I go back to the creation of the Constitution, because in the 1780s, because that's, you can see the roots of the Civil War there. And then I take us into the Civil War, and I don't just do battles. I also do things like women in nursing, medicine, those kinds of things. We go through Reconstruction after the Civil War, and then I take it. I usually can take it as far as the late 19th century, where you see all the rights won by freed slaves being whittled away as time goes on, which is it's an interesting history, but it's also tragic history. And the other class is slavery and abolition, which I've taught once before, and I go talk about the concept of slavery all the way back to the ancient world, but the focus is on the United States, and it's again the defining elements, I think, of the first half of the 19th century. So I my reading material for all of these classes, I tend to use the internet, and I like to use primary sources, as we call them. In other words, eyewitness accounts of certain events, but also a historian or two. Some of the things that some of the sources would be like the History Channel, American Heritage, Britannica, those kinds of things. And the internet is just so incredibly good for primary sources like that. So I use those. And what I have the students do is write a paper by the end of each class on any topic of their choice, within reason, within the nature of the class. I mean, the structure of the class, but it can be anything. I had a great paper on horseshoes, and it was one of the best things I ever read. I mean, I enjoy reading these papers because I learned so much. And this student was a horse person, and she discovered that while the North had factories to make horseshoes, the Confederacy didn't. And so they had to make them by hand. And so they fell far behind. it was an interesting way to approach it. So when I present the material, I use PowerPoint, and I put PowerPoint slides up for every session, and I follow those PowerPoint slides throughout that day, that session. And but I usually send it ahead of time to each student. I email them to each student so they can have it in front of them if they want to, or they can go back and review later. And I record, as we all do. I record the sessions and send them afterwards to the students.
This is probably most of the answer to my next question, which is, how does a typical class with you go? So you said you do send these PowerPoints ahead of time and you follow them through. But aside from that, how much is lecture, how much discussion, and what do you really expect from students in terms of homework and the time between you meet? And is there any expectation of the parents?
I will always have a reading assignment, and most always. And if the only time I would not have a reading assignment is if I had a lot, maybe a week before, or sometimes I will send them videos of something that's already online, and that have them look at that. I would like the students to have the reading material done by the time class begins. They have my phone number. They have my email, and students can reach me anytime to talk about anything about the class, about it. Like, for instance, if they're going to do a project or a paper, they can call me or text me, email me, and we'll talk about it. As far as the parent goes, I think it's best when the parent is also involved with the students. I've dealt with a number of parents. I'm always open to talk to a parent, which I enjoy doing that.
Do your courses tend to be more lecture based, more discussion based? How would you say the conversation element of the online school presents in your courses?
I try to do both, but I start out as quote lecture, although that makes it sound like I'm sitting around just spewing out information. That's not the case. I mean, I try to be very conversational in doing this, and I always ask for questions, or if anyone has any thoughts about what we just talked about. Sometimes the students are latch on to something, and sometimes I have to prod every once in a while, depending on the subject matter. I didn't have to prod on the Salem witchcraft trials. They were all upset. Why did everyone listen to those girls? So I have great time discussing this. I have a great time with these kids. They're very, very intelligent and very open to all kinds of new things and new ideas.
So on that topic, I know that we do tend to have a lot of children who are gifted in some cases and who tend to be a little bit younger than what might be typically recommended in terms of age. But what is the age range that you would recommend for your class, both for a gifted child and for a child who's on a more typical learning track?
I've had children from 10 to 14, and that's fine with me. At first I thought maybe the classes would be more geared toward the early teenager, but I've discovered that the younger kids, they can handle it, and they do a good job. So also I do make myself available to children who want to talk more after class. I can set up appointment during the week, and I also, if a child is having a difficulty understanding certain concepts, or they're confused about something, I always make myself available to them so we can talk about it. But I also, those are the times I would always invite a parent to join us at that point.
So if parents want to contact you before the semester starts to find out more about whether or not you're the right fit for their child, where can they reach you?
They can reach me on email, via email. And we'll start out with that. And if they want to discuss anything beyond email, you can put my phone number on there as well. We can discuss it. So.
Great. So we'll just link to your email in the description. And is there anything else? Any other questions you want to address?
No, I think that's all.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions for our parents. And we really look forward to your semester starting.
It's been my pleasure, Jordan. Thank you.